Okay. Good evening. This meeting of the Palo Alto Unified School District School Board comes to order. We just met in closed session, and by a vote of 4-0, the Board of Education voted to expel student 01-1819 and to suspend the enforcement of the expulsion order pursuant to the stipulated agreement executed on 18 December 2018. And in closed session, the board rescinded their December 4th, 2018 rejection of liability claim Tuazon versus PAUSD BSD 1819.12 with a vote of 4-0, moved by Mr. Collins, seconded by Mr. Drop. In addition, the board reconsidered the liability claim Tuazon versus PAUSD BSD 1819.12 as part of agenda item B5 with a vote of 4-0 to approve the claim, moved by Mr. Collins, seconded by Mr. Drop. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda order?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
I would like to note that our student board members this evening are working on finals, and they diligently showed up here, and we sent them on their way. They were busy studying up front, and so we look forward to seeing them again in January, but wish them luck tonight, or this week. Okay, we moved that. Okay. On to, I don't know where my agenda is, consent calendar? Wait, let me get my agenda. I don't want to go over it. Okay, yes, onto the consent calendar, which I'm going to, these items are considered routine and will be approved in one action without discussion. If a board member requests an item to be removed from the calendar or a citizen wishes to speak to an item, it will be considered under action items. I just want to note that before I hear from you all, I am going to pull J. I'm going to pull J for us to discuss at the top of action items. Any other? Okay. Motion to approve consent calendar?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Okay, for nothing. Moving on to open forum.
We have 5 cards.
We have 5 cards for open forum. As a reminder, if you'd like to speak about anything that's not agendized for this evening, you can fill out a card over on the table and give it to Vicky, sitting over there waving to us. You'll have 3 minutes to come to the mic. I will call 3 people at a time so you can start to queue yourselves up. And the timer on the dais will give you a warning when there's 1 minute on the, by the mic will give you a warning when there's 1 minute left.
It looks like they're all on the same topic, and I think maybe together as a group. Do you want to ask if they want to go in a particular order? I don't know if you have a particular order. Or...
Okay, I am, is there anyone that's really wanting to go first there? Okay, so I'm just gonna, yeah? And your name? Great, okay, great. I'll call Allison Rosen, Claire Lynn, and Avery Wang. Will be the first 3, you can come on up. Allison Rosen, Claire Lynn, and Avery Wang.
Hi, I'm Allison Rosen. I'm a clinical neuropsychologist, and I'm at Stanford in the Palo Alto VA. And my child is at Green in middle school. Our focus is on math education, especially in middle school, in compliance with law SB 359. So SB 359 mandates evaluation at 6th and 9th grade, and as a neuropsychologist, I've observed these measures, not personally, but I've heard about what's going on in these assessments, and I feel that they're not valid. I believe that we should instead use nationally normed measures like the local communities. So we as a group have been surveying the local communities, and that's what's being done. What happens in 6th grade is that all children are placed in 6th grade and there's no differentiation. The result is that there's massive variability in math performance, and so there's some kids who struggle, some kids who are in the middle range who feel neglected, and because all the tension goes to the kids who are struggling, they feel. And several kids feel like they learn nothing because they already have mastered the material. And in fact, they're not allowed to study the next grade material. And at the end of that year, several of them skip 2 grade levels. So we feel that if there were appropriate assessment and relative to national norms, that there would be appropriate placement and the children could be appropriately challenged and receive the support they need. So that was my main statement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Claire Lynn, Avery Wang, Oliver Mao.
My name is Claire Lin. I'm the mother of a 6th grader girl. My daughter is at Green. I'm here to support the same opinion as the previous speaker. Specifically, as parents, I would like to have a school district provide the proper math placement for the kids starting from 6th grade. Just take my own example. As I'm here speaking, my 6th grader girl is taking a private math class at Green. It's also at Green because the private, the school there in the evening provide the proper level of math for her. During the day, she is at Green, but, because her math level is much more advanced, she's at a 8th grade math level, but she's taking the 6th grade math, so we have to place her into the private school. I feel like, if the school district can provide the proper math placement, then will be much better resources being used for both the school and the parents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Avery Wang, Oliver Mao, Edith Ko.
Right. Hi, everybody. I'm Avery Wang. I have 3 kids in the district. So in Palo Alto, it seems like there's a great reluctance to place students above grade level. And due to our many highly educated families, we have a large percentage of kids up to 2 to 3 years or more ahead of grade level. For middle school above grade level placement, I think against the spirit of SB 359, an in-house uncalibrated test is administered only by invitation. The format and content of the test is not disclosed, and the results are not given. In discussions with the math administration, I was told that they were making the test harder in order to prevent tiger parents from pushing their kids to get above grade level. The theory was if the families were told that it was nearly impossible to pass the test, and if the kid failed the test, then they would give up and stop pushing their kid forward and stop with after-school supplemental tutoring. And the concern voiced was for wellness. And I think this is an overreach to try to control what families do with their kids. But also what the stance completely fails to take into account is if a student actually likes math. So my son was inspired in 7th grade by movies like The Man Who Knew Infinity and The Imitation Game. So he used his own money to buy math books and read them cover to cover. Through self-study, he taught himself algebra and geometry by the end of 7th grade. I didn't push him, and he had no tutoring. So I asked about a placement test, and I was told no such thing existed. As a result, my son had to sit through 2 years of math in which he was badly misplaced. And it was very stressful for him to be bored and wasting his time. And he would be very angry at me for not knowing how things worked and having him placed appropriately. So, and my son is now on the Pali math team, and he actually creates hard math problems for his teammates to solve. So you probably think I'm elitist, and many people in the district will have no sympathy for my stance, but please consider that there is a serious wellness problem for students who are interested and talented at math when the PAUSD math policy is to try to prevent accelerated placement, ironically, for the sake of wellness. So my son, instead of learning a growth mindset, learned frustration and cynicism as a result of ever higher barriers put in place as he was trying to jump through new hoops that were erected for the purpose of preventing him from being placed appropriately. There's my statement.
Thank you. Oh, good. Perfect. Okay. Oliver Mao, Edith Cohen, Michael Cohen-Wang.
Oliver, pull that mic right up to your.
Sure, great, thank you.
Perfect.
Okay. Happy holidays, and thank you for volunteering your time to be on the school board. When my wife and I first found out that we were having twins, we thought about what community we wanted to live in, and we decided to buy a home in Palo Alto. And we were fortunate in that we got a home right before they were born. Those twins are now in 4th grade, and imagine to my wife's and my surprise when we have friends in nearby districts like Mountain View, where their friends are in middle school, and my friend recently told me, oh, his daughter got placed in a higher math class, and he didn't even know that there was a test, and that would help them just to advance naturally. And later, when we talked to other parents in the district, as 4th grade parents, finding out that in middle school, our kids would either have to take the same level math as all 6th grade middle schoolers, or the other choice we had would be for them to take a test to jump 2 grade levels. To us, that feels like a very unnatural incentive. You know, we'd prefer not to spend time tutoring our kids at home or to help them be more advanced at math and just to flow with other advanced math students. They love to learn, we love to encourage them to learn, but we're very concerned that in 6th grade, they'd be repeating material that would be very boring for them. And we don't think that's good for their emotional health or for the emotional health of other students in their class. On the flip side, if we do manage to help them get ahead by 2 years, I still don't think that's good for my own kids' emotional health. And I also don't think it's good for the health of their peers in their grade level. So I'd ask you to, over time, consider what other districts are doing in terms of having a middle ground for advanced students who don't necessarily have to skip 2 grade levels, but also don't have to repeat materials in 6th grade. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Edith Cohen, Michael Cohen-Wang, Gracie Sheng.
Okay, so I'm
Eddie,
here
pull that mic down to your.
So I'm here on the same topic. I would like to talk about the middle school math program, drawing on my professional expertise in mathematics, education. I'm a computer science professor and data science, and on the experience of 4 kids going through Jordan Green middle schools, looking at them and their peers. I also looked at a lot of data from our districts and from demographically similar sister districts in Santa Clara County, including Los Altos, Saratoga, and Cupertino. So now middle school. Middle school is a rapid growth period, also for the brain. And it's a time to build foundations, confidence, and push limits. Because later in high school, students try to optimize their portfolio. So their time to learn is when they are in middle school. And what is deprived during the middle school years cannot be recovered later on. And I myself, as a child, really benefited from the ability to accelerate when I was a child in math and science, which I loved. Okay. So students need math courses that are suitable in level, in depth, and in pace in order to get what they need to grow and develop. And math courses that meet them where they are and take them to feel their own individual potential. And this is what we're failing on. So in school, my kids made great friendships, and they had dedicated teachers, but middle school math was a sore point for all of them. They were given placement tests that defy norms at the beginning of 6th grade, pulled out one-shot, high-stake, misconducted often tests, uncalibrated, artificial barriers placed for testing. Then it plays a process that defies all norms, no education norms. 10-year-olds were given time tests without being told it's timed, okay? Consequently, they were misplaced for the whole of 6th grade in a course they could not learn, and they were not even given allowed to use their time productively at school for the whole of 6th grades. Later, 2 of them skipped 2 classes. Our middle school courses have a rigid instruction of the Common Core curriculum, and data shows that the top 40% of our students, so this is proxied just by the Asian students, have average that is already above exceeds the grade level standards of the next grade level. This means that a very large fraction of our kids are not supported by what we give them in 6th grade. And in the language of the Mass Placement Act, this is a egregious misplacement. Okay, what we're doing to these kids, they are placed in school in a class that they have doesn't allow them to learn. Okay?
Thank you. Michael Cohen-Wang, Gracie,
You might want to say if they want to make.
if you have any further comments, we'd love to read them at board@pausd.org. Then Gracie Shang, then I cannot see what this says, Sharita Chowdhury? Yes. Okay. And last is Lan Gao.
Anyways, so my friend couldn't come today, so I will be reading the speech he made. Anyways, good evening, board members. My name is Maxwell Zhang. I'm sorry that I cannot be here in person because I'm taking a math class outside of Green Middle School in the evening. I love math, but I can't learn anything in school. Some of my friends from Cupertino seem to have more opportunities at school. Therefore, they can learn things in the class. I feel like I'm wasting 4 hours every week sitting in the class. My parents have to look for classes outside of school and make sure that I can advance. I really wish I can go to school and learn something in class every day. Green Middle School is a great school and I love my school. I just wish the school can help students like me to learn, especially in math class. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracie Shang, Sharita Chowdhury, Lan Gao, and Sukyung Chong.
Good evening. I'm here also talk about the math issue.
Lift that mic up to your mouth. Thank you.
And I just want to speak to my personal experience. Before I came here, my son, who's in 8th grade right now, asked me why I'm coming to the board meeting. I told him it's for the math and explained to him. And he said, please tell the board member that our 6th grade math needs improvement. It's not appropriate to not have a differentiated curriculum for the 6th grade. And when he was 6th grade, he loves math. He never attended any extracurricular math class when he was elementary. And when he joined 6th grade, I noticed that he became grumpy and stuff. So I talked to him, and he's saying, "Oh, the math class is so boring, and we're just reviewing, and it's the same thing over and over. I learned this already on the 5th grade." And they give them, the teacher's great, and he loves teacher, and I also really like the teacher. The issue is that, the teacher gives MC8, and that's considered, enrichment. They give Einstein problem. But some kids are not interested in that, math competition, right? Like he is not interested in math competition. He just loves math in general, and he's more advanced in math. He wants to learn advanced math, topics. However, when we asked whether we can, he can study like 7th grade math textbook just because, 6th grade he mastered it, he mastered unit. And we were told by the math coordinator that's not allowed. That's not allowed. So you can only learn the 6th grade textbook and use AMC8 or Einstein problem as enrichment. But part of the problem is that teacher does not teach about AMC8 or Einstein. You have to do it on your own, right? So you don't use class time to learn this. And if you don't know how to solve that problem, you have no one to ask for because the time is limited. The teacher has to spend time with, the kids need help. So the issue I see is that the kids who's more advanced is kind of left out without a proper education for their math. So I'm coming here to also urge the board member to consider this and look at what Los Altos has been done, Saratoga has been done, and Cupertino has been done. They started differentiating at 6th grade, and that's more organic pathway, in my view, for the math education. And what the one we have here is not. So I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was just Gracie, right? Okay. Sharita Chowdhury, Lan Gao, Sukyung Chong.
So when he was in 5th grade, his teacher, and then when we had the parent-teacher conference, she said, he's doing great in math. You should consider maybe he can skip when he's in middle school. He was at that level. And so it's at the end of 6th grade, his CAP scoring was at the top. He scored A+ in his 6th grade class. And then, so he was invited to take the skip test, which unfortunately he couldn't clear because of the high bar that they had for the test, for the placement test. Now he's in 7A, where he knows 90% of the stuff, I would say, more than 90%. And he's sitting and he's getting bored in the classroom. And and it's kind of frustrating because for him, he's not getting the enough challenge that he would like to have in his math class. So as a parent, I have to, again, put him in private lessons outside. Now he takes, on Tuesday, I'm going to take him, drop him for his math lesson from 7, he takes it from 7 to 9 p.m. The time he could use, if he was placed right in his math class, he could have used this time to do something else, maybe to use it for more physical activity or for something else. I feel like this is the time that as a parent, I would not like him to spend outside. This is extra money you have to spend on the classes for me to shuttle him to the class, bring him back, for him to spend that 2 hours extra that he should be spending on other fun things that he should. So if he was placed right in his math class, he was allowed to skip and he was in algebra, that would be appropriate for him, then I will not need to do it. And what bothers me the most is these are the options which are available in school. It's just that the way the placement methodology that Palo Alto Unified School District is using, which is like a black box, the test happened, nobody tells you the score, nobody tells you what comes in it, what the student should prepare. I felt very frustrated as a parent, just the way the placement happened. And I don't understand. I talk to the teachers, I try to talk to other parents, I try to find out how does this work? And I can't think of a scientific or fact-based method. It feels like everybody has their own self way of thinking, like, oh, this is how it should be. You should make it strict so the parents don't push it. Like, either you should not just have these skip at all. If you do, then do them right.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Lan Gao and Suk-Young Chung.
Hi, good evening. So I have 2 kids. My older one is a 7th grader in JLS, and younger one is 1st grade. So my older one, he actually was in Challenger throughout since preschool to elementary. Then in 6th grade, he moved to JLS. And when he was in 5th grade, he took the AMC 8 test in his school, and he scored 16. And then when he was, I know, it was good, but he didn't practice at all. I didn't hire any tutor, just go there and take a test. He didn't prepare at all. Now in 6th grade, there was a placement test. So kids, if they are eligible, if they pass the test, they can be placed in 8th grade because they don't, I think from the email I got is there's differentiated curriculum in 6th grade. So they typically don't place kids in 7th grade. Instead, if they pass the test, they directly go to 8th grade. He unfortunately could not pass that test. So he was so bored in class for the entire year. It was a torture for him. And he just ended up, what can we expect? Like for a boy, like he just plays and then bother other people in class. And it's not good for other kids as well. And we ended up spending like more than $2,000 to enroll him in classic math, which is a popular, I would say, math, extracurriculum. They provide more things up to his level. And in 6th grade, he actually, they had a placement test and he was able to study the algebra even in 6th grade. And now he's studying geometry in classic math. So, and he was thriving there. And he was able to follow up, he understood very well, and the teacher liked him. So my question is, why he couldn't pass that test, why we have such a high bar that he was so painful in 6th grade and even now. So I think I hope our placement test can really put kids in appropriate level and to help them thrive. I really feel like I spent extra money and he spent extra time, and he thrives. He's able to learn and to learn well in other places, but why not in school? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Sukyung Chung and Jo Zhang. Did I say your name right?
Yeah, my name is Sukyung Chung. I'm here late and I'm first time in this kind of meeting, so I'm not prepared. So I'll be very quick. I just want to share my personal story. I moved to Palo Alto about 2 years ago from Sunnyvale. At the time, I have 3 kids, now first grade, 5th grade, and 7th grade. And we are debating where to go, and decision to come to Palo Alto because our schools are really good and we have to pay this much mortgage and tax, but it'll pay off the private school tuition, and that's good enough. And yeah, that was my decision. And generally, I'm happy with the Palo Alto schools, but math was, from the first day of the school, my kids were pretty, disappointed about what they learn at school. But anyway, so they get used to. And I have 7th grade. I mean, I see 7th grade parents, so I guess those are covered before. So I want to share my 5th grade. Now he's going to middle school, and we have to decide where to go. He's really strong in math, and he loves math. But I'm not sure if he can skip to 8th grade test. But if he had to stay 6th grade, it'll be another miserable year for him, I'm pretty sure, because he's been complaining. And his friend of his similar level, who's generally enthusiastic students, and not only math and other aspects, and very energized, they are looking for private schools now, because they want their kids continue to work hard, what they can do. And I mean, we can't afford. So I mean, my first concern or hope right now is there's some opportunity for him, my son, who's going to middle school next year, have the right place to go in terms of math curriculum so that he can really enjoy the class. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jo Zhang?
Thank you. My name is Josanne. I'm here because my wife asked me to. Well, I have 2 kids. That's another reason. I have 2 kids, one 7th grader, one 4th grader. And I'm a big believer that kids should be allowed to do whatever they wanted to pursue, right? If they want to go play, they go play. I was trained as an engineer, but I think, even if they play, I tell my wife, what do they need to learn in elementary school? Just let them play. My daughter, I work with my daughter a little bit. I think she's pretty good at the math. She's in 7th grade. She took the test. She didn't pass. So she's fine. She's happy, just like any teenager girls. She's happily chatting away every day on Instagram. I'm sure she feels like her time is much better spent on doing Instagram instead of mathematics. I'm okay with it. I'm not pushing her to do anything. I think if she's happy with it, that's fine. Let her be, right? The kids should be allowed to do pursue whatever they like to do. My son's in 4th grade. He's totally different story. He's a sort of a troublemaker at school. He's bored, very bored with mathematics, a number of other things. And I'm concerned about it. And I see my daughter, if she chooses to, be more social, be spending more time on other things, that's okay if the student chooses to do that. Now, if somebody like my son who's genuinely interested in the science, math, and wanted to ask all different kind of questions, I don't think there's any good outlets for him to spend a good amount of time or be allowed to pursue what he really wants to pursue. And for that concern, I'm here. I want to share with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on to our reports, superintendent's report.
All right. First of all, I'd like to Well, our board cannot respond to our speakers, and I'm not going to respond. I would like to thank everyone for coming tonight, and there are definitely areas that we're looking at together. And I recognize some of the faces and just want to thank you all for coming out. For the superintendent's report, on board meeting days especially, I try to start those days on campuses because it's a really great reminder of why we're all here. And today I was able to start the morning at Ohlone Elementary School, which is a pretty good place to start a day. And for people unfamiliar with the school, it's a unique school, but the part that was the most fun today for me is I got to go back and see how the farm actually works. So not just to stand at the fence and look over at the animals, but to go back in and see the instruction, sit and talk with kids that, going group from group. There's one section outside and they were cooking like a soup, and they were cutting up the garlic, and that was fun to watch these kids outside and they're preparing. But then you walk 15, 20 feet away, and the next set of kids are planting the garlic to harvest in a year. It was just really a neat thing to see, and to see the connections that the kids are making and how many adults are required to make that happen. And they talked to me about the number of adults that have to come in just to care for the animals, including over the summer, because while the kids are gone, the animals still want to eat, apparently. So, that's something I'm going to sign up for and go be a part of, live down the street. So a great way to start the day. And from there, went over to Addison Elementary, and Addison, another great school, and also unique in that it's the smallest footprint of a school in our district. And on top of that, we've pretty much dug up the entire campus. So it is really cramped right now while the work is being done. But I was able to visit just about every classroom, and the teachers had such good spirits about it, and they could see the big picture, and they were teaching away today. And by the way, if you haven't been in a second grade classroom the week of winter break, those teachers all need a hug. I'm telling you, there's energy coming out of the kids' ears, but it was really, really fun to see. Couple quick things. There's been some recent buzz around the Santa Clara County's final environmental impact report. And that is the report that is defining some of the pieces of Stanford University's general use permit. And specifically, I'm not going to go in depth in this, we'll agendize this another day, but specifically, there was concern raised about a statement in the report that there was no impact for Palo Alto schools. I just want to clarify quickly, that's a very technical term, not no impact. I think everyone understands that term. But as it relates to the impact on the environment, that is very different than saying that the agreement itself has no impact on Palo Alto schools. It undeniably has an impact on Palo Alto schools. Joe Simidian's office is preparing a document for us to explain the recent report in plain speak. So to basically take this technical report, simplify it so that the really important aspects are just easy for everyone to digest. So we'll have a lot more to say about this topic. It's not agendized tonight, so I'm going to cut it off there. We'll bring this back at another time. Finally, for me, still looking for additional opportunities to reach out. It's been fun trying to get out to PTA meetings on sites, and we have a general council meeting coming up not far from now. Increasing site visits, PTA coffees. January 12th, I'm excited about our family leadership conference that Ms. Conaway so instrumental in putting together. It's going to be a pretty amazing event. And in just a brief amount of time, you're going to hear more about our efforts through Let's Talk, which has proven to be a really nice way to communicate with people. While there's no substitute for face-to-face, it has definitely been a way to connect with some people and to get insights. So that's it for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no student board members tonight. We wish them luck on their finals. So on to 4C, the Bond Citizens Oversight Committee Annual Report.
I ask Dr. Golton to introduce our guest tonight.
Hi, good evening. So this is another year and another report for the Strong Schools Bond. I want to introduce Prirana Vaida, who is the vice chair of our Construction Oversight Citizens Oversight Committee, and Daniel Tiao, who is the chair. And just to comment, we have just a wonderful group of 7 people that are so helpful. And by the way, there's no telling how much we would be paying per hour for the services they provide.
Thank you, Bob. Madam Chairperson, my name is Daniel Teo. I'm the current chair of the Citizens Oversight Committee. On behalf of my colleagues on the committee and with the help of professional accounting firm Christie White and Associates, I'm pleased to report that to the best of our knowledge, the disbursement of funds this past year under the district's Strong School Bond has been consistent with the uses identified in the Palo Alto School Modernization and Expansion Bond of 2008, or Measure A. And in so doing, we believe that the district has also fulfilled its responsibilities under Proposition 39 and Article 13A, Section 1, bracket B, bracket 3 of the California State Constitution, the section that governs the administration of such school bonds. In this past year, in the fiscal year 2017-2018, the bond program expended nearly $27.3 million during this year, and as of June 30th, 2018, approximately 78% of the full bond budget was contractually committed, and 73% of it has been expended. Now, I've been a member of this committee for about 5 years now, so now in my 6th year, I feel like I'm in a position to say that as a community, we are lucky to have the program managed by a very professional team of people, led by Bob Golton and Ron Smith from the district office, and in partnership with Tom Hodges and his colleagues from FS3 Hodges. Together, they have helped us efficiently deliver some of the best school facilities the district has ever seen. I also want to take this opportunity to recognize retiring members of the immediate past committee for their contributions, including Mr. Bruce Whitson, Mr. Jim Cowie, and Ms. Dana Kispetova, all of whom have devoted many hours of their time and wisdom to this cause. Pending the resolution of the board on this matter a little later in the agenda, the committee also looks forward to taking responsibilities for monitoring new projects and new disbursements under the new 2018 school bond, or Measure Z. We look forward to another exciting year ahead. The full report of the committee is submitted as part of the supplementary materials that you have before you. My colleague and I will be available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Dauber, do you have any comments or questions?
Just briefly, I want to thank the committee for your work representing the community's interest in the bond expenditures. That really builds confidence. And I want to thank also staff for their hard work in this. I think the community's confidence in the bond is really amply represented by the success of Measure Z recently, and that really is a testimony to all of your efforts. Thank you.
Mr. Collins.
I echo my colleague's comments. He stole my line. I was going to say that often the performance of your oversight committee isn't put up to a vote of all your neighbors, but in this case it was, and it was resoundingly a resounding vote of confidence. So as an alum of this committee, I know that it is both ably led and even better staffed. I've always been incredibly impressed with the quality of the membership and the participation on this committee. You know, I think as many of you know, some of you know, many districts have trouble staffing their bond oversight committees. They have trouble getting people to serve. They have trouble getting the right mix. The Prop 39 statute has very specific requirements for the different types of people, the roles of people who are supposed to be on the committee. We have had a committee that has been fully staffed with all the right people. And as they've gone off, I have to say, with all due respect to retiring members, including myself, even better people have come after continuously upgrading the quality of the committee. So I really appreciate the committee's work. And like we said, not only do we see the vote, we see the buildings. And so we've had 10 years of successful bond building program, and I look forward to 10 more years going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Darup?
I just want to echo my colleagues and thank the members of the committee for serving.
They stole my thunder, both of them, all of them. As I was reading over this item in the packet, I thought, gosh, every time I look at one of these reports, it's thorough, it's specific, it's exciting to read. And really, when we voted in this bond just this fall, it really, I think more than anything, is a testimony to the work that you all do. You run a really tight ship, you make it very clear. We have a great bond program, and I'm grateful to all of the work that you do on it. So thank you. Okay, nothing to vote on there, right? Next report for 4E is the annual independent audit report. Oh, did I skip D? Oh, I skipped over it. I put them together. So I'm sorry, 4D, the annual Strong Schools Bond financial and performance audits for 2018. Sorry, Bob. Didn't mean to skip you.
This report will be presented by Sarah Feeler, who is with Christie White Associates, the auditor for the program.
I'm sorry, I skipped you.
Thank you. Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here to present the audit report for Palo Alto Unified School District, Measure A, Strong Performance Bond, Financial and Performance Audit for the year ended June 30, 2018. So I first wanted to start with some of the testing that we performed to reach our opinion. The first of which, we begin our audit report with an introduction of the bond and also the Citizen Oversight Committee. And kind of in our evaluation of the Citizen Oversight Committee, we make sure that the district has established a committee, that it has the required community representation, and has the required 7 members. And if there is any vacancy that the district is seeking active participation, currently the district has fulfilled all of those positions. We also look at the frequency of the Oversight Committee's meetings to make sure that it's in line with the life cycle and maturity of the bond measure. We also verify that the district is providing the audit report to the Oversight Committee within 3 months of the report being issued. The timing of that report for Palo Alto is almost at the same time. And we make sure that the Oversight Committee is issuing an annual report, which was just presented. So our objective in reaching our financial opinion is that we examine the district's financial statements and disclosures, and we present an opinion to the fairness of the presentation of those financial statements. And just to note, our opinion for the financial audit is strictly to Measure A, Strong School Bond. And our opinion is noted on page 4 of the audit report, and in summary states that in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of Measure A, Strong School Bond of Palo Alto Unified for the year ended June 30, 2018. And this is an unmodified opinion, the best opinion that can be issued. So to just summarize some of the procedures that we go through to reach this opinion, we perform substantive procedures. In this, we test cash, accounts receivable, also accounts payable, revenue, and expenses are the largest component of our testing for the financial audit as well as the performance audit that I'll now go into. So our audit objectives for the performance audit, kind of the standard language for what a performance audit is listed here, but essentially we are auditing and testing the performance of Measure A against required criteria. And so some of additional objectives of the performance audit, we provide management with an independent and objective evaluation of the Measure A bond. We make sure that the district is meeting the public demand of receiving a performance audit, which is required for Prop 39 bonds. We also evaluate that expenditures are in line with ballot language, one of the key areas that we test. And we also gain an understanding of the bond program and the environment to which the bond operates. And some of the procedures that we do to reach our performance audit. Expenditure testing is a large component of our testing. For the year ended June 30, 2018, we tested $17.2 million of project expenditures and $480,000 of personnel expenditures. And you'll see that we tested 65% of project expenditures as well as 64% of personnel-related expenditures. The performance site walk, I probably say this each year that I present, but the site walk is one of my favorite parts of our audit. We kind of get out of the office, kind of put on our running shoes and go see all of the great work that has resulted from the expenditures that we're seeing in the financial statements. And so for this year, we toured Gunn High School, where I personally viewed the central building and the theater. We also toured the Palo Alto High School library project. And also, we test public bidding procedures and change orders that were executed during the year. For bidding, we looked at the Pali clock bell speaker replacement, the gun fire alarm replacement, and the JLS pool renovation project. And for change orders, we reviewed Gunn High School Central Building, JLS pool renovation, and Palo Alto High School 700 building renovation. And the results of our performance audit in terms of internal controls, we noted that there were no significant deficiencies nor any material weaknesses. And for the performance audit, we have issued an unmodified opinion, which again is the clean opinion that can be issued over Measure A. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. I'd also like to thank management for their assistance in the audit, kind of echoing what was presented before. There is a great group of people that are working on Measure A, and I have the privilege of working with them. Their assistance during the audit, and I think from an audit perspective, their transparency is unmatched. So thank you very much, and be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Great, thank you so much. Mr. Darrow.
We just lauded the Citizens Oversight Committee, and I think you just affirmed that, so thank you.
Great, Mr. Dauber.
Thank you, no questions.
I have no questions, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, now 4E, the annual independent audit report.
So tonight we have Mr. Sheldon Chavan from Chavan & Associates to present the audit report. They do our field work, come in the springtime, and then finish up in September, and it culminates with the audit report, and they're going to present the results of the report.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Oh, wait, it's not.
How about now? There we go. So kind of ruined my joke. 2 auditors in the room at one time. So punishment, I don't know. Did you guys do something wrong this year? We're going to find out as we get into the audit report. So we're looking back to June 30, 2018. And it's an interesting year. And there's a lot of different things we can talk about, but probably not enough time to get into them. So what I will do is I'm going to go over the objective of the audit. And then I'm going to touch on the results. And whether or not there were any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. Talk a little bit about fund balance, and then the fund one, GASB 75, which is other post-employment benefits. And then we'll discuss pensions, and then we can go with questions after that. So the objective of the audit is very simply to present those financial statements in the audit report and determine, or basically whether or not they are free from material misstatement. Right? Try to keep it simple. Are the financial statements presented free of material misstatement? And that's our main objective, whether it be from financial reporting errors or from non-compliance, is our goal, is to make sure that the financial statements in the auditing package are free from material misstatement. In the auditing package, you're going to find a lot of different sections. You're going to find the government-wide financial statements. You're going to find the fund financial statements, required supplementary information, and then a compliance section. And there's also a findings and recommendations section. Some of the information included in there, for example, the management's discussion and analysis is unaudited, right? So it's a compilation of an audit with unaudited information as well. Although if you pull me aside and ask me if all that information is audited, I might say yes. I just can't say it in the audit package. Now for those results. So we issue 4 different opinion letters in this package. And the main opinion letter, if I can speak correctly, it's getting too close to Christmas, is the independent auditor's report. And that's where we talk about whether or not those financial statements are presented free of misstatements. And I can happily say that there are not any modifications in that opinion, which means that no qualifications, no exceptions. We do have an except for or an other matter paragraph because as pretty much every other school district in California, you have a deficit net position at June 30, 2018. The good news is it was $14 million deficit at 18. Last year was almost $50 million. So you've actually increased your net position, and there's various reasons why. The other important aspect of the audit and the results is whether or not there's any material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, control deficiencies, or findings, and I'm happy to say there were not any. Available reserves, fund balance, general fund. You have a minimum requirement of 3% that you have to meet each year, otherwise the state comes knocking. And you are at 10.1% as of June 30, 2018. Available reserves in your general fund. GASB 75. So you'll notice in these financial statements that there's new information about your other post-employment benefits. The other post-employment benefits this year, you're going to see some new terminology. It's really your unfunded actuarial liability. It's called the net OPEB liability now. So you have an increase in that liability. It went up from $15 million last year to almost $23 million as of June 30, 2018. So from 17 and 18, you went from 15 to $23 million. Not a huge increase considering. And it's a totally different way to account for those other post-employment benefits. You did not have to record the unfunded actuarial liability in the past, actuarially accrued liability in the past, but now you do. It's just called something different, and there's some new accounting behind it. So you see some additional disclosures, and you see prior period adjustments, because it's a change in accounting policy. Pensions, GASB 68, so STRS, PERS, retirement benefits. Those went up quite a bit this year, as they have been for the last 4 years or 5 years, I think since 2015. And the main reason for those increases is simply the discount rates. And there's more to it than that. There's other assumptions, experience changes, and things of that nature, but really it has to do with the discount rates. And going down, basically, for example, PERS went from 7.5 to 7.15, STRS went from 7.5 to 7.1% on those discount rates. And so when the discount rate goes down in those valuation reports, the liability goes up. And your proportionate share stays the same, but your liability goes up. And you can expect that to continue based on what I've been seeing and based on recent information. If you Google it, you'll see PERS is going to decrease those discount rates some more. All right, so that's really what I wanted to touch on. I do thank management. They were very helpful this year. And we can get into any questions that you have and dig in.
Thank you very much. Mr. Collins.
Thank you. Thank you for your report, and thank you for completing the audit. I'm glad that we agreed at the last meeting that we were going to look at our pension liability situation more carefully and try to understand it better. Our pension liability has gone up about $40 million a year the last 2 years. There are about 20,000 households in Palo Alto. That's about $2,000 per household. When we have a net deficit position as a district as a whole, that's not kidding around. It is numbers on paper, but it's not just numbers on paper. That's actual dollar liabilities that we owe to people. That's debt. And it's going to have to be funded by people in the future. So those are our successors. Those are us if we're still around, or our children or our children's children will be paying off actual debt that are recorded on the balance sheet that you just reported. And as you say, that debt's going to continue to go up as the discount rates at the pension funds are adjusted to truer market conditions. So I'm really looking forward to Dr. Novak bringing us some some framing on that and helping us kind of reckon with what we can do to try to protect the future of our future students, our future community from a mountain of debt that we've piled on in the last few years. Thank you.
Mr. Dara?
Thank you for the presentation. I echo Mr. Collins. I'm looking forward to seeing that as well, but nothing else for now.
Mr. Dauber?
No questions, thank you.
I don't have any questions. We do have one public comment. Kathy Jordan? You want to come out now? Thank you.
Thank you. As parents, we want our students to receive what they're entitled to under the law regarding minimum mandated instructional minutes so that they might receive instruction to assist them in their learning. I would like to object to this audit report on this basis, as it does not include the fact that Palo Alto High School was deficient in 2017-18 in mandated minimum instructional minutes, and that this information about this deficiency was known prior to the date of this report. Public records show Palo Alto Unified officers discussing this deficiency for 2017-18. Further, Palo Alto Unified's own public records show Dr. McGee reporting to the board in 2017 that Palo Alto Unified had been deficient for multiple years in instructional minutes, thus a known problem from prior years as well. In addition, the Christy White audit report to the district about instructional minutes seems to misstate how blended learning classes function, saying that blended learning classes qualify to count for minimum instructional minutes, as in those classes, attendance is taken, and the students are under the supervision of certificated personnel. But according to the Pali course catalog, that's not accurate. According to that catalog, during blended learning classes release periods, no attendance is taken. Students aren't required to be present at all, and thus are not under the supervision of certificated personnel. Thus, I question the validity of the Christy Wright assertions regarding blended learning. I question the validity of counting blended learning classes as minimum mandated instructional minutes, given the attendance practices of these classes. And I ask that the district deliver the mandated minimum instructional minutes to our students so that they might receive the instruction they are entitled to assist with their learning. I also ask the district to modify this audit report to reflect the known deficiency in instructional minutes for 2017-18. Thank you.
Thank you. You can. You can.
Would you like me to respond?
I would love for you to respond.
Okay. We spent quite a bit of time going over the instructional minutes in this past fiscal year. Even the year before that, we had some comments with management identifying some potential issues with not tracking the instructional minutes early enough where it could lead to an issue with compliance. And ultimately, what we did was we went through those bell schedules, we increased our sample sizes, and we thought we had identified a problem. And so what I did was, there was some vaguity in regard to the education code. There's some room for error and there's some grayness. And so what I did was I contacted the state and I contacted CDE, and I had them confirm what I believed was the correct conclusion, that there shouldn't have been a finding related to this non-compliance. Now, keep in mind that it was general and in the sense of it wasn't mentioned what district it was, but it was a question that was specific to the situation and the circumstances and whether or not they believed that would be a non-compliant issue. And they concluded that, no, it wouldn't have been a non-compliant issue. And when they conclude in those certain things, what they do is they reiterate what the facts are. They don't just say, okay, you're in compliance. They won't do that. But they reiterate what the facts are, and then you draw your conclusions based on that. So I felt what the email and the information I received from them supported our conclusions based on the samples we selected and the testing that we had performed. Now, that doesn't mean that something couldn't have been there that we didn't find. It's an audit, right? We sample, we identify risk and analysis, and we increase our samples and we test more. If something's found, we write it up. If something's not found, we don't. And it's an unbiased approach, right? It's a risk-based audit. So there is always the opportunity that new information comes up and it needs to be looked into even after an audit happens. But in this case, I felt we were very diligent in our approach, that we addressed all the risks that were identified, and that the work papers and the support we were provided support the audit opinion that we've given you tonight in relation to the instructional minutes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Colleagues, any other comments? Ready to move on? Okay, thank you. On to 4F, the report on Let's Talk.
We're going to turn this over to Mr. Moore, who's going to lead us through a little bit of the purpose of Let's Talk and then show us some back-end analytics that are pretty exciting.
All right, thank you. Been doing a lot of talking about talking lately, so we'll do a little bit more here. So we about 6 weeks ago, we launched a new platform called Let's Talk as a way to collect and gather feedback and kind of a consistent way across the district. There are a number of things that we anticipated to happen, and a number of things that we didn't anticipate to happen and are very pleasantly pleased with. I'll say one of those is some calibration around our communication. And we've spent a lot of time talking about how we message, where we message, and how we write certain things and where they need to be. And that's, I think, been very good for us. I have a lot of background in the report. What I'm going to do is talk about a couple things on the slide up here that may need some explanation. So where I want to start is with the district overview. And this report, or this PowerPoint, is presented as is, straight out of our Let's Talk system. So our thinking is that this is some good metrics for us going forward, and very easy for us to produce in future information sections of the board agenda. So in the upper left-hand corner, the first one we're starting is the CX score, which is the customer satisfaction score. This is right now 7.7, and what happens is that after each dialogue that we have, there's a feedback form that goes out to the individual, and it's a rating score of 1 to 10. So much like Amazon does ratings on their transactions, we are asking for feedback on the information that we provided. So currently our score is 7.7. In our weekly scheduled calls with our implementation manager, we are about average. This is very average for a launch and kind of what it looks like across all of their customer base. The next box to the right is the dialogue gauge, and it says 0.6. So 0.6 means a little bit more than half a business day. So from the time the response comes in, we have been responding in a little bit less than, or a little bit more than half a business day. So that's pretty good. The two boxes at the bottom that I want to talk about are positive and negative experiences. So with the positive experiences is a score of 8 or higher, and a negative experience is a score of 5 or lower. What we've learned from, or we anticipate to happen is we hope that we have a lot more positive experiences than negative experiences. But what we've been paying attention to is, what are the negative experiences? Why are they negative experiences? And are there things that we can do to change them to positive, or that we could have done differently that result in a better score over time? So I will say that this is very standard from what our implementation team has told us for what this data would look like at this point in time. The next slide is fairly self-explanatory. The score distribution of from 1 to 10. You can see that most of the ratings are from 7 to 10. Age, so this is the age of how long it's taken to reply. Dialogue activity, so this is the number of dialogues that have been opened and number of questions that have been asked on a weekly basis. So, this is something that we did just start, so obviously there's not a whole lot of data on this graph, but we will see this change hopefully over time. Top interest areas right now, our superintendent interest area is on top, and Don's been very active in the system. And followed next by the kind of general inquiries and comments. And the next slide is around customer type. So we have talked a little bit about, we don't traditionally refer to people in school districts as customers. However, I think that, as we've talked through with this company a little bit, it's starting to make a little bit of sense to us of really classifying what our audiences are, and making sure that our messaging is clear and appropriate for each of the different types of audiences that we might not have referred to them as customers in the past, but as we're thinking about our audiences, we're doing it a little bit more explicitly now to ensure that the messaging is correct and accurate and clear to the appropriate people. dialogue type. So one of the fields that gets submitted when someone comes to our site to submit is, what are you submitting? Is it a question, comment, suggestion, concern, or compliment? And you can see there's a wide spread there of different pieces, even compliments too, and quite a bit of suggestions. A customer frequency. This is looking at the number of dialogues that an individual submits. So this is kind of a good metric over time to see, kind of gauge the feedback and volume of what and where the dialogues are coming from. So with that, that's all I wanted to talk about, and I'm open to any questions from the board.
Thank you. Mr. Dauber.
No, I'm really pleased to see this. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Mr. Collins.
Thanks.
Mr. Dauber.
Love it.
I've got one quick question. How much is this costing us
This is currently about 24,000.
for the year?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions. Thank you so much. It's really interesting.
Thanks.
And in case any of our community did not yet know about Let's Talk, if you come to our PAUSD website, would you like to tell them exactly?
Yes, absolutely. So the Let's Talk button is in the menu of the website. So it will be on every single page you open. And there's an extra button or an extra side tab on the superintendent's page that will go straight to our superintendent.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
And you're going to bring this in monthly reports or every board meeting or?
Yeah, what we discussed is putting the analytics on, just like we do with the legal expenses, once a month under information. And if we have a highlight, then we'll call it out during a report. Otherwise, it'll just be in information.
Great. Thank you. Okay, on to action items. We're going to start with, actually, before we get to what's listed as 5A, we're going to talk about committee assignments, which I pulled for 2 quick changes. For our Cal SSD committee, I had only assigned Ms. Peyton Caswell, and she requested that since those meetings typically take place in Sacramento, and that's a big drive, she can't always make it, she'd like another member, so I'm just going to assign myself as that backup member. So as long as there are no objections to that, I'd be the second Cal SSD committee member. Yeah, I figured most people would be. And then also for the Stanford School Liaison Committee, I had initially appointed Mr. Dauber and myself. And I think for right now, we made a decision that we're just not going to staff that committee as long as the GUP and the negotiated agreement is being worked on. That won't be an active committee right now. Right now, Dr. Austin talks with Stanford about other issues, and if something needs our attention, then we'll deal with that at the time. But right now, there's really nothing else that we're meeting with about Stanford. So we'll just put a pause on that committee and not staff it for now, unless there's any objection to that. And then after the GUP negotiations are finished, we can pick up that committee again and make it active again and start meeting on a regular basis with Stanford. Comments? Questions?
When the GUP isn't an issue, what are some of the things that we do discuss with Stanford?
One of the things that we did not discuss with Stanford right before I came on the board, was some new construction they were doing that they were planning to put an exemption, tax exemption in from. And so as a result, the estimated tax base that we thought we'd have that year came in a lot lower. And they knew they were going to put in that exemption, and we did not communicate effectively in that way. So that's one of the things that we said, hey, going forward, let's make sure that we periodically meet with them and check in if there's any big financial impacts on us ahead of time. Did you have anything to add?
As I mentioned to you, and I'll just throw it out so the board can know as well. I actually think this committee, we should consider sunsetting this committee. I think it is very important that staff has an ongoing and close relationship with Stanford staff at a variety of levels. But it's less clear to me, this traditionally has been a committee made up of our board members and middle-level staff members or upper middle-level staff members at Stanford. And it's not clear to me why that's the right face-off. And in fact, I think it undermines the role of our staff in facing off with their colleagues at Stanford. So it would make sense to me that, I mean, we can experiment with it because you're not staffing the committee and we'll see how it goes. that it might be worthy of reconsideration to just set this up as a staff organization, and then, the board can get involved when staff sees fit.
So right now, I think we are going to, the staff will continue to meet on an as-needed basis, or perhaps a regular basis if they desire. And this will be paused for now. And once the GUP is finished, we can revisit it. So given those two changes, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, 4-0. Thank you. Moving on to our only other action item, 5A, the first interim budget report.
I can just frame this up. Dr. Novak is available for questions. Otherwise, you've seen the full report. There are no changes or revisions of substance. So if you have a question, he's available. Otherwise, we have no presentation tonight.
Great. Mr. Darb.
I don't have any additional questions.
Mr. Dauber.
I don't have any questions. I'll move that the board give the positive certification and approve the budget revisions as set forth in the item.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No opposed. Great, 4-0. Moving on. That is some action. Okay, on to our discussion items. 6A is approval of the school calendars. For those of you out there in TV land who have been waiting for the calendars, here they are.
After our 2-meeting rule.
Right. Well, here they are.
I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Hendricks to walk us through this.
Thank you so much. I do agree that the school calendar is one of the most important documents that a staff and community and students wait for. And we appreciate the patience of the community and staff as the calendar committee has worked this fall, multiple meetings to develop and bring forward one calendar for each of the next 3 school years. PAEA representatives, CSEA representatives, and district staff have worked together. Really want to give a shout out to PAEA President Terry Baldwin, who I think is in the back, and Meb Steiner, really for the amount of record keeping and thinking that goes on behind these calendars, and the recognition of input provided by the community and staff, really to try to bring forward calendars that meet the needs to the greatest extent possible of all stakeholders. So with that, we're bringing one calendar recommendation for each school year. We're here to respond to any questions or any discussion points.
Thank you so much. Mr. Collins.
No questions.
Mr. Dorop.
I've got kind of a broad question, and I don't want this to minimize all the work that goes into this. The question is really, why do we start school when we start it? So what are some of the main considerations that you take into account when deciding we're going to start in the middle of August and we're going to end in early June?
So I think there's been a historical evolution on that, and I'll ask my colleagues to pitch in if necessary. But as you'll see or note, the school year has started earlier throughout the years. And one of the things that we really work on for that first semester is trying to get as many academic days in, particularly for secondary students who we need to have complete finals before winter break. And that has pushed the start date back earlier in August than it was some years ago. Trying to balance off the number of school days and get as many academic days in first semester as possible.
And if there, can I go again?
Sure.
Sorry. So we decided to have Thanksgiving 1 week-long break. Is there a preference to pushing out the end of the year later or beginning earlier, or is it split evenly when we add in a break?
The Thanksgiving break, we surveyed for that because it was kind of a pilot or a model that we utilized the last 2 school years. And there was great satisfaction from all stakeholders about that Thanksgiving week. So with that, we decided to embed it in the 3 calendars this year. And then it's really a matter of just trying to take the 180 academic days and figure out how to compile them in a manner that gives the most possible days to that first semester and ends finals. And there's only so far in August that we believe we can move it forward and still make it amenable to staff and to families as well. These calendars match calendars of recent years in terms of start and stop times, but they do look like an earlier start and earlier end than you may have seen some years ago.
And lastly, when making the calendar, do you do a rough estimation of instructional minutes? And if so, do you use the current bell schedule to kind of map out whether or not that schedule is going to account for all minutes?
We don't. That's a great question. We don't. This is about instructional days, and we don't calculate instructional minutes within that. I don't know, Ms. Sofek, if you want to add anything to any of those questions, or welcome to.
Great. Okay, Mr. Dauber, you haven't gone yet, have you? No.
Actually, I do want to thank the Agenda Setting Committee. I think that these 5 items represent probably the perfect example of why the 2-meeting rule, if I can just for a moment, is really costing us. Each of these have virtually no controversy associated with them, but all of them have, I think, some cost in delaying the resolution of them for the next school board meeting. The school calendars, I think our community would be better served if we, pass this now rather than in January at our next meeting, and I think that's probably true for most of these. I won't make that motion, but because I don't know where my colleagues are on it, but I think that, it's really silly for us to put this off until January to approve.
Thank you for your thoughts on that. Thank you for all the work that went into completing these calendars. I think a lot of us have gotten questions for a while about what the schedule will be. And I just want to sort of acknowledge that for many families, it is really difficult to start so early in August, especially our younger kids. If there are, family vacations that happen in August, traditions, it is getting earlier and earlier, and that is difficult. I think from my understanding, wanting to finish finals before December break is one of the factors. And also because schools around here start in August, sports start in August. So for our high school students, if they have to be back here anyway, and it's a big number of students who have to be back here for sports, then it makes sense to start the school year then as well. But there is an acknowledgement that is, makes it more challenging for some others. I think these calendars look great, ready to pass them. I think we should bring them back on consent next time. And that's it. Any other? You're getting a look. Let's bring it back on consent. I think that everyone has indicated that they will in January support these. So there's a pretty safe bet that these are going to pass as is, and people can start making their plans. But I agree with you, not passed yet.
Not passed yet.
Okay, moving on to 6B.
Okay, for 6B and 6C, I'd like to bring Dr. Golden up. Yes.
Yeah, B. He'll be up for the 2 of them, but right now we're on 6B.
That's right.
Good. 6B is the Santa Clara County application. And
Can you, it might not be working again, I don't know, but a little closer?
I think
Okay,
it's good. I'm sorry. I'll do it closer.
thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, we touched it.
Can we use bond funds to fix that, Dr. Golden? Is that allowed?
Bond maintenance?
Actually, we don't have it on our bond project list, so.
Okay, facilities?
Seriously, not joking. But at any rate, back to this. As far as 6B is concerned, the board voted on October 12th to submit an application to the county for $200,000 to be matched by $200,000 in district funds to do an accessible playground at El Carmelo School. I received a call and then an email about a week ago, 10 days ago, saying that they needed a resolution, not simply a board approval. So I returned tonight with a resolution. Incidentally, this call, although they had not at that time announced the results, and I think they are announcing them either today or tomorrow, but I view this call as good news in the sense that logically they wouldn't be asking us to complete the application if, in fact, they were going to then turn around and say, sorry, but you're not getting the money. So at any rate, so that's it. So this is this resolution. My deadline's the end of January, and therefore it's perfectly acceptable for it to be on the next consent agenda.
Why, thank you very much. Mr. Dauber.
No questions. I think this is really exciting, and I'm happy to hear the positive, your optimism.
Mr. Collins.
I move that we approve the resolution supporting the application.
I second.
We'd have to waive the 2-meeting rule to do that.
Do we want to do that?
Well,
You sure it's not any value?
Dr. Golden signaled that it's
Their
not due till the
deadline
end
is
of
the end of
January,
January.
so it doesn't need to happen. So if there's any questions, Mr. Dauber?
No questions.
Okay, let's bring it back on consent then. Yay. Okay. 6C, appointment of the 2008 bond, Measure A Bond Citizens Oversight Committee to oversee also the 2018 Measure Z Bond Program Resolution number 2018-19.09.
We have what's commonly now called an overlapping bonds. Why? Because there remains Measure A funds, 2008 Measure A funds to be expended, and at the same time, there needs to be a review of the Measure Z funding. Our auditor has informed us that, well, first of all, this is common. Why is it common? Because school districts, when they pass a bond and when money is expended, you have one of two choices. Either to say, well, it was good to do that, but we're not going to do that anymore. Or alternatively, we want to keep on improving our schools. The citizens of Palo Alto School District voted to say, yes, we want to keep on improving our schools. Without exception, what school districts do is they appoint the members of one bond committee to be the same members of the other bond committee. So, by the way, there'll be 2 annual reports and there'll be 2 audits and whatever, but the fact remains the membership will be the same. The other weirdness, of course, is that as we move to the end of the Measure A funding, there will be projects that are funded partly by the Measure A and partly by Measure Z. And so again, that would be weird if you had 2 committees. And so that's why school districts don't do it. And so we're recommending that in this case, the members of the Measure A committee be also appointed the members of the Measure Z committee.
Thank you. Mr. Darrow?
I think this makes sense in a process way, streamlines it, it avoids duplicative work. My question is, we had a lot of enthusiasm behind Measure Z, and I guess my first question is, what is the process by which the board appoints members to the Citizens Oversight Committee? Is there a call for applications?
Yes, there is. And the last set of appointments, the committees rotate in August. And so the last set of appointments was made in June of 2018, and the next set will be made in June of 2020. There's a 2-year term, and there's a 3-term limit. Actually, in reflecting on this, we have a really good committee now. But in fact, 2 members, Bruce Whitson and Jim Cowie, who were tremendous leaders, they simply couldn't remain on the committee. So there is this rotation that takes effect, and we put ads in the newspaper, and we send out to the community and their applications, and then individuals are selected and they're submitted to the board.
I think that when we do go through that process, we should really emphasize that this is for Measure Z and Measure A instead of saying it's sort of more of the same, because I think we want to encourage people who have been so enthusiastic behind getting Measure Z passed, who are qualified and would like to serve on this committee to come forward without seeming like we're just rubber stamping people who are already very qualified on the current committee, but just opening it up to new members to serve.
We will do that.
Thank you. Mr. Dauber?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Collins? Thank you. I guess I have one quick question. I'm guessing it's not twice as much work, but this annual report that we saw, it looks like a lot of effort goes into that. So I'm guessing that the regular meetings look pretty much the same. It's just a different funding source. But is it twice as much work in preparing these 2 different reports, or is it just a big report split up into 2?
Well, staff prepares the financial information. The committee makes a decision on the format and how the report will look, and then also the chair of the committee, with the approval of the other members of the committee, writes that page 2 letter that chair signs.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, and
So it's
incidentally,
more work for
the
staff.
requirement is that, as far as urgency, the requirement is that within 60 days of the election result, the committee for Measure Z needs to be appointed, and so it's 60 days from early December, and so that doesn't have to happen until February.
So
I mean, from
again,
the date that the results are certified or the
Correct.
date of the election? 'Cause
No,
we'll be-
when the results are certified.
okay.
So we have time.
We'll bring this back on consent as well. Thank you. 6D, Dr. Austin.
Okay, this one goes to Ms. Hendricks, and we'll frame this up for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the backdrop on this is our board bylaw 9270, and it says the board shall adopt a resolution that specifies the terms of the district's conflict of interest code, the district's designated positions, and the disclosure categories required for each position. So every LEA is required on a biannual basis to review their codes. This year, the Office of the County Council of Santa Clara, which is the code reviewing body for all local agencies, public agencies in the county, reviewed our code and made recommended changes to our conflict of interest code. There are 4 changes that are on this document. The first is a link that's been added to allow filers to easily access the text of the code. The second, we have updated our position titles, and we have third, we've changed 2 titles to disclosure category 2 to 1 based on input. The fourth revision is basically reflecting the FPPC reorganization and renumbering of their regulations. So those are embedded in the document. I've provided a highlighted copy of the document in front of you so that you can actually see what those changes are, if helpful. The first highlighted section is the link I described. The second is the updated names of positions in the districts and disclosure categories. And finally, you'll see some small highlights with changes in reorganization and renumbering of regulations.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
No questions, thank you.
We're on a tear here. Mr. Dar.
No questions.
No
Mr.
questions,
Dauber.
thank you.
Moving on to 6E, proposed calendar for the board meetings for next year.
I'll just tell you, in preparation for this item, and we certainly want to make sure we're all on the same page, we held very closely to our regulation that meetings should be on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. So with as few exceptions as possible, we held to that, even when it's would have been convenient to have modified that. We were also very attentive to holidays. We really took time on that and took the most conservative approach to each of those. And then we have some suggested holding spots for study sessions with just kind of traditional times when a study session may make sense. And we added a second meeting in June, which is, that's actually a requirement. So this year, we're going to have a little bit of an issue in June that we're going to have to figure out. But just really try to look at it from compliance, from the issues of our regulations, practicality, where we have our hot topics, and then sensitivity to holidays.
Thank you. Colleagues, I was going to speak to it a little bit as well, but I think you pretty much summed up. We had to really look at it a few times because of some of the religious holidays in the fall, and this seemed to be the best alternatives that we could come up with. So, Mr. Dauber, do you have any questions or comments?
Just a couple. In early October, there's only one regular board meeting, is that right?
Yes, October 8th is one of the Jewish holidays, and we tried to shift some Tuesdays, and that didn't work out so well, so we got rid of it.
I see. But, so the Thursday, the October the 3rd is a potential special meeting? Is that right?
If needed, yes.
It seems unlikely that we won't need it, to me. And October 1st is a problem for some reason?
It's less of a problem, but it's also 1 week directly after the last board meeting.
I guess I would just suggest considering making that a regular board meeting. I know it's a week after the previous one, but we typically have a fair amount to do in that month. And so I think it's less confusing to have that meeting happen on Tuesday as opposed to on the Thursday.
Okay.
That's my suggestion.
Am I inaccurate that the first
Is that Rosh Hashanah?
was, I thought it was a problem.
Can you look that one up?
October 1st?
October 1st, which I thought was maybe the second night of Rosh Hashanah?
I mean, if there's a issue, then.
Yeah, I can't remember.
That's just my,
I remember we kept bumping up into which night of a holiday it was, and then we also really didn't want them back to back. But if it's not an issue, then we can see what others think of it, and staff can take it back, and we can either way bring it back on consent. And if someone wants to pull it and talk about it further, we can.
okay, if you could just put a note about it in the item, then I can read it and make a decision about whether or not to.
Great. Okay.
October 1st is the second night of Rosh Hashanah.
Okay.
So that's.
It's out.
Okay. I just have another quick comment on the December special meeting. My preference is that when we have special meetings, they occur in the same week as a regular board meeting because it makes possible travel, essentially. So I would myself prefer that be on the 12th rather than the 5th.
Okay. Let's keep going. Thank you. Mr. Collins.
I associate myself with my colleagues' comments, but no other comments.
Okay. Mr. Darrow.
No additional comments.
Okay, I agree on the 12th. If it doesn't matter all that much to you, that has been our practice, that the Thursday morning after the Tuesday, it makes for kind of a busy week, but it does make it easier for those of us that need to travel periodically for work. So given that one change of the morning of the 12th instead of the 5th, hopefully we'll bring this back on consent next time. Great. Thank you so much. That brings us at 8:07 into information items. 7A, our legal expenses report. There's no report on, this is what classifies as an information item. There is no staff report on it. It is just information for us. So it is there. Board has had a chance to look at it. So we'll just see if anyone has any comments on it. Mr. Drop, do you have any?
Nope.
Okay, Mr. Dauber?
I don't have any comments. No.
Mr. Collins? Nor do I. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're on to board operations. Mr. Drop?
I wanted to ask how each of the board members interact with the schools they've been assigned to be liaisons to.
I think it's different, member by member, so I don't know, do you want to?
Yeah, I think it varies. Yeah, I'm not
sure we can have this.
About how we interact with schools? It seems like that's more operations. How's the way that you interact?
I don't know. I suggest that we agendize it for the board retreat. It's kind of a board retreat kind of question, so.
All right. We'll add that to the retreat.
You know who you should talk to is Terry Godfrey. No, she's a good person to.
Yep.
She very thoughtfully went about it.
And she sets the bar.
She had a routine for how she did it.
Yes.
Very a good person.
Okay, great. Anything else for operations?
And no Brown.
Great. Mr. Dauber?
I just want to point out that when I was the board president, we always took a break around this time, and I noticed you're not doing that.
I'm going to give you a long break. I'm about to give you a 3-week break.
I don't mean to be critical, but I am missing that break. I don't have anything else.
Mr. Collins?
I did want to report out from the City School Liaison Committee. You should each have the copies of the write-ups that we do. I apologize, they're slightly out of order. I'm sorry, it's just flipped around. The actual update memo is on the back of the agenda. And I apologize, I didn't get the last month out. Oh, wait, I didn't get the last month out at the first December meeting, so I apologize. But focusing on the most recent meeting, I just wanted to call out a couple of things. One is that there is the North Ventura Coordinated Area Plan being developed by the city, and that I think is a worthwhile thing for us to attend to as a district. This is a part of our community that is not well served by our schools today and sense of location. There are no schools in the Ventura community, and it is because of the geography of the community bounded by major streets and railways. It is a difficult, safe route to school environment. As most people expect, 200 to 300 homes get built on the Fry site, that'll be a major source of kids. And right now, their attendance area is Barron Park School. We urge the city staff who did not, who were not really cognizant of the issue, that they really needed to attend for where and how those kids go to school, and possibly try to work with us to consider whether there should be a school site created either at the existing Ventura site, which has not been a school for us since 1975, or at the perhaps swapping that site or acquiring land over by the Fry site itself and creating a new school. I think there's a lot to chew on there, that there's no easy answer, but that's why I think it's useful to staff to get involved at this point rather than down the line when ideas have firmed up, perhaps without our input. So I urge staff to, and the community needs to be, particularly the Ventura community, should be cognizant and aware that that's a consideration. We also talked about the Cubberley Master Plan. There's the report from the second meeting of the Cubberley Plan attached, and the next meeting is January 24th, I believe. Yeah, with the third meeting of that process. And at some point, we will have that group come and present to us as a board. And I believe we also have a joint meeting with our city council colleagues. I think this is one that's going to sneak up on us and actually take a lot of our time next year, because it's a very, very big project, a very, very big decision, arguably the biggest land asset in the city, and we're doing a once-in-a-generation master plan about what we're going to do with it. So I urge all of us, including myself, to try to get up to speed so we can hit it with a running start when it starts kind of falling in our lap next year, and we have to start thinking about what are we actually going to do here. I also wanted to mention that we attended, Ms. DeBrienza and myself attended the city council meeting last night. Do you want to talk about that?
You can go.
Okay. We attended the city council meeting. Supervisor Simidian was there, and we took the opportunity, and he was there to do a general study session, the vast majority of which was taken up with discussion of the Scanford GUP and the impact on the city. And a number of the city council members took it upon themselves to offer support for our resolution and our position. I personally asked that the city council do a formal resolution in support of our resolution, because I do think as we go through the GUP process, speaking with one voice is going to be very important for influencing supervisors who are not named Simidian, who don't know us, don't represent us, don't really understand, oh, this is a city council person, this is how these things fit together. For them, it's Palo Alto. And to the extent that Palo Alto speaks with a single voice in support of the schools, I think our message is most likely to be heard, and we're most likely to get what we want. So I urge people to, including my colleagues here, to talk to city council people and urge them to step up in support of our resolution. And finally, I just wanted to, echo what I think you were saying at the end of Open Forum. This math placement issue, I think, is one that we've heard about for many years, and I'm sure we'll always hear about it. But it did strike me that a number of people spent a bunch of time looking at it and took the trouble to show up. And so it'd be interesting, if you think it's appropriate, to review that and maybe put it on the agenda sometime next year.
I'd just like to follow up something that Mr. Collins said about the Ventura, the North Ventura process, because I do think that it's of interest to the district, and I don't want us to miss that opportunity because it's kind of fallen between the cracks. The City School Liaison Committee, I think, is well positioned to continue to engage to make sure that this process takes into account the district's interests here, along with staff context. But I also want to urge the Agenda Setting Committee to, bring it to the board if you think that it would be useful to have the board consider and weigh in on that question.
Thank you. I don't really have anything to add. I think last night it was helpful. We had a clear support from Supervisor Simitian, and he also basically encouraged City Council to express their support so that there was a united front coming from Palo Alto. And I think that he felt the supervisors would expect that the school board would support, but when he saw that if they saw that the entire city council and the city had one voice, that these were concerns, and we hope to see these mitigations, that he thought that would be a stronger message.
Could I ask a question about that, just an information question?
Yeah.
When I listened to a interview that Supervisor Simitian did with the Palo Alto Weekly, he used the phrase full mitigation to describe his criterion for Stanford's, response to the, to the development that they want to do. Did he use that phrase again during the city council meeting, and did he explain what he meant by it?
Yes, he used that term consistently, and he talked about it, I think in the same way that we spoke about it at our board meeting when we passed the resolution, that basically, yes, Stanford does a lot of good, and we have a great relationship, and we give back and forth in numerous ways, but the consequence of them doing this build will have negative impacts for us. So even though in the EIR that means something very specific, of course there will be negative consequences for us, and they should completely mitigate those. Whatever the impact is, they should be prepared, and they should want to, because it serves them better when we are a strong district. And he spoke very clearly of that, and I think we're all on the same page about that. It was a good description of what we would like to see, full mitigation. I think that's it. If you'd like, I can take another 28 minutes.
I'm winning
but,
the pool right now, we're done.
Oh, really? Wait a second. Wait a second.
I did.
Price is Right rules. Okay, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.